meeting to order. We're going to call the meeting to order. Now that the room is empty, I guess, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the special voting meeting for August 8th. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance, but we do need, since we're voting, we do need to call the roll one more time.
All right, Ms. Albright. Mrs. Bell.
Here.
She's there. I know she's there. Mr. Jarrett.
Here.
Mrs. Leone.
Here.
Ms. Olson.
Here.
Mr. Scott here. Mr. Strobel.
Here.
Okay, and Mrs. Thompson.
Here.
8 yeses.
Okay. Procedures for public participation haven't changed in the last 20 minutes, except that on a special voting meeting, you will have a time to make your statements now, and then you'll have a time to make your statements at the end of the meeting, not after every section, as in the committee of the whole. Having said that, we do have some edits to make that I would like to make before we open up for public participation. The edits that I have to make. All right, so the four edits that I have to make. Well, no, yeah, 4. I want to add a notice that there will be an executive session following this meeting to discuss personnel and settlement agreements. I want to announce that there were 2 executive sessions during the intervening time between the last meeting and this meeting to discuss personnel. I want to announce that we have an agenda edit for under 3A1 for appointments to approve the professional 1-7. We just needed to change the last name of the person up for appointment to Welch. We just had to change his name. We want to add under number 8, Anna Milano, a .6 health teacher at the Daniel Boone Middle School, effective for the 22-23 school year, with a salary of $33,923. That would partially replace Ms. Flegel. And under 2A8 for consent items. Yeah, for consent items, I want to add, as discussed in the last meeting, the middle school cooling tower heat exchanger to be installed by Berkshire Mechanical at a replacement at the cost not to exceed $28,320 as approved as voted out of the Facilities and Technology Committee. Start with that. So, do I have a motion to make all those edits?
Facilities and Transportation Committee, you meant.
Yeah, what did I say?
Facilities and Technology.
I do that all the time. Facilities and as amended by Mr. Jarrett. Do I have a motion for those amendments?
So this is 3A1,
3A1,
7 and 8.
7 and 8,
Okay.
and then under
2A8.
yeah, and then under 1F, we want to add the executive sessions for after this meeting and the 2 executive sessions that occurred this summer. Under 1F. So do I have a vote for those things? I mean, do I have a motion to add those things to the
I'll make that
agenda?
motion.
I'll second.
Okay, and then we need to vote on them.
Oh.
Yeah, because it's a voting meeting, I have to vote on them.
Mrs. Albright.
She's left.
Okay, she had to go, so she's no longer here. So
Would her representative be able to vote?
no, stop it. So who's
Bell.
next?
I'm sorry, holding up the meeting. Mrs. Bell.
Quarter after 9, Bucky.
Oh my gosh. Mr. Jarrett, do you have anything to say over there?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Mrs. Leone?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Scott, yes. Mr. Strobel?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Take your time. Okay. Mrs. Olson?
Yes.
I'm going to get you all back, and you don't yell at me.
So
Now
that's-
there's nobody here.
So that's 7-0?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I just wanted to handle this one separately because all of this information was new tonight. So I would like to make a motion to add to the agenda under 2A9, a motion to enter into an agreement with Cardinal Point Security for school security services as presented to the Committee of the Whole, 8/8/2022. And just to remind everyone, if we do vote to add this to the agenda, everything under 2 consent items is subject to our solicitor's approval.
Right.
So do I have a motion to add that to the agenda?
Make that.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have a motion to add, so can we get a vote to add that one?
Yes. Mrs. Albright's not here.
Yep. And
Okay.
Mr. Scott says yes?
Mrs. Bell?
Yes.
All right. Mrs. Jarrett?
Yes.
Mrs. Leone?
Yes.
Mr. Scott? Yes. Mr. Strobel?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Miss Olson?
Yes. Okay, so, all right. So do we have any presentation by the public on agenda items before we start?
I think it's fair to say.
Okay, so seeing none, we're gonna vote, we're gonna make a motion for consent items A, 1 through 8, except not 6.
We say except not 3 as well.
Yes. Do you have a conflict or you want to pull that one out and talk about it later? Okay. So can we have a motion to vote on 2A 1 through 8, except 3 and 6? That makes sense? Can I get a motion for that? We're gonna do that one separately as well.
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay.
Remove this one.
And so can, any comments, questions, concerns about those things? They are pretty straightforward for stuff that has to happen at the beginning of the school year and our voting meeting minutes. So can I get a vote, Mr. Scott?
What am I putting her under since she left the meeting? I'm just writing not here. She's not abstaining. Okay.
Yeah, she's just absent.
Okay. Mrs. Bell.
Yes.
Mr. Jarrett.
Yes.
Mrs. Leone.
Yes.
Mr. Scott, yes. Mr. Strobel.
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson.
Yes.
Miss Olson.
Yes.
Okay. 7 yes.
Okay, can we get a motion for 2A3? Can I get a second? I'll make that motion. And I'm assuming we want to have some discussion.
Yeah, I guess my biggest fear, I would rather, I don't want to say yes to somebody and then in a week or 2, we find somebody and then we've just given away the money. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do.
would rather wait and see how long this is going to be an issue before just doing
I hear what you're
a
saying.
second.
Anybody else have any comments about it?
Did this just get added? Was this just added did we discuss this before?
No,
Okay.
no. I discussed it with Dr. Cooper.
So I'm in agreement with Mrs. Leone.
Okay. Do you want to offer any comment?
Yeah, I can share with you that we've gone through multiple interviews for this position. Have not found the right fit for at this point, and the well continues to be dry. So
And
I'm
also,
pretty confident in saying when I say that I do not anticipate anybody, even within the next 2 weeks, let alone the next month, being hired for this position of business
and there still will
manager.
be a ramp-up period for
Yeah.
anybody who does get hired.
Right, there would be a waiting period to get released from previous employers, so on and so forth. The $1,500 stipend, when you look at the business manager's compensation of $82,000, if you would do the math based on the monthly amount, the $1,500 doesn't even come close to the amount where that position has been vacated to this point.
And that's like comparing on a monthly basis, and this would be
Yes.
an additional stipend for an annual
Yes.
service.
How long has she been with the district?
25 years?
How long has, Kathleen, how long has Michelle been with the district? It's been over 20 years, I know that.
About 20 years right now,
Yeah.
21, going into 21.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we?
Do you, by giving her that, she feels better about staying?
I don't know how else you would do it.
Yes.
Okay. I totally get it. Yeah.
Any other questions before we vote? Okay. Go ahead, we're going to take a
Okay,
vote.
here we go. All right, so we already did the, get it approved. So, okay, so Mrs. Albright.
This is
and-
just, and she's not here.
Yeah, I keep saying that. All right, Mrs. Bell.
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Jarrett.
No.
Mrs. Leone.
No.
Mrs. Scott, yes. Mr. Strobel.
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Olson.
Yes.
So that's 5 yeses, 2 noes.
Okay. Then moving on to, can we get a motion for 2A6?
What?
That goes on to 22nd.
That's next. Yeah, so can I get a motion for 2A6?
A motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a letter to read to y'all. Dear Dr. Cooper, Ms. Olafson, and the Danny Boone's Board of Directors, I want to begin this letter by thanking the board and administration of the Danny Boone School District for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this school board for 2 years. It has been an honor and a wonderful opportunity for me to grow as an individual. With regrets, in July of 2022, my husband and I relocated to Honeybrook, Pennsylvania, and no longer reside within the Danny Boone School District limits, and as such, will no longer be able to remain in my role as a school board director. Again, thank you for the opportunity. I will remember my time fondly and have grown a new and utmost reverence for people in political positions. Respectfully, Ashley Godfrey. I had never known Ms. Godfrey. She serves out of Region 3, which is my region, and at a point when we had significant shortage of people who were willing to step forward to help run the school board. Ms. Godfrey and Ms. Thompson stepped forward at the same time a little over 2 years ago. And I'm really grateful that they did. I'm glad I got to know Ms. Godfrey, and it's not easy, and it's not universally beloved position to hold, and that issue, that lack of universal love was never more apparent than during the COVID years, and I really appreciate her putting herself out there. She had many kids in the district. She had a lot of other pressures on her time, but she was always here for us, and I did appreciate having her here. Anybody have any comments before we vote on accepting her resignation?
Well, Ashley was a good friend of mine, and still is. And her kids are my kids' best friends, and we're sad to lose her. But she was great to be able to like complain to her about meetings, and even when we disagreed on topics, she was great, and we were always respectful. She was respectful of her.
True enough. Okay. Anyone else? And can we have a vote on that item?
Yes. Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Jarrett,
Yes.
Mrs. Leoni,
Yes.
Mr. Scott, yes. Mr. Strobel,
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson,
Yes.
and Mrs. Olson.
Yes. And the next thing I'm about to say, it doesn't require any board action because now there is a vacancy on the board. We will advertise in all appropriate places for the hopefully filling in short order that position from Region 3.
Ashley's doing this.
Yeah, she really is. All right. And going back to, can I get a motion for 2A9, which is the security service item. Can I get a motion for that?
I made it.
Second from over there? Okay.
Over there.
One thing
Either one of us, doesn't matter.
I wanted, before I'm going to,
Voted on. I thought we voted on it too.
no.
Voted on, put it on.
We voted on adding it to the agenda. Now we're going to vote on whether or not we're going ahead with it. Yeah. I know. I swear we're almost done. And so someone during the committee of the whole asked a question that will be answered more fulsomely on our website in a couple days. But since we are voting on this now, I wanted to have the opportunity for the board to hear the answer. And also have it on the record. A community member came up and asked if we had exhausted all other avenues of providing additional security, and one thing that she had brought up was the possibility of metal detectors. I know it has been discussed internally, because again, we don't always discuss every decision that's made about security publicly, but I would like it if our safety officer would just address that concern of a public member.
Weapons detection systems are just an added feature for security,
Right.
but they don't replace that human factor. So if you have somebody that comes into the building and they go through the weapon detection system and they would spot, say, a handgun, you would want somebody with a handgun tactfully approaching them and pulling them aside. Because once they're through and they detect that handgun, I won't get into the tactics that would be employed, but there's a way that you would approach that person. So let's just say you have all the students come through, no handguns detected, but halfway through the day, somebody opens a door, now you have an armed intruder come through one of them open doors, and we don't have an armed security officer in the building, then you got a problem. So the weapons detection system are just an enhancement, but you want that armed security person or armed police officer to properly and tactfully approach those subjects.
And just to make this clear,
Are we looking at them?
yeah,
We're looking at a lot of different ways.
but that's not part of this contract.
That is not part of this contract, no. The contract is only calling for personnel.
Okay.
As far as hardening the buildings with additional security enhancements, those are things that are above, over and above the,
And any of those kind of hardening of the buildings would have to be up to board approval, correct? It would not just happen?
Yeah,
Okay.
Of course, we discuss this all the time,
Sure.
myself and the administration. We discuss ways that we can improve the safety here. And certainly any weapons detection system or any other enhancement, we discuss those and we prioritize those. The priority this year was to arm our personnel in the school. There's no replacement for that. There's no replacement for an armed police officer or an armed security officer. But going forward, there are a lot of other technologies out there that schools are integrating, hospitals are integrating, that enhance the security. At some point, we would look at weapons detection systems. We are looking at them, but that's not really something that we prioritize this year.
It would add like another hour into the school day just to get kids in the building.
Well, you know what, there's a lot of new technology out there where, and again, this is something that we have to research, but there's some new systems out there. And these systems aren't 100% foolproof either. That's the other part of this,
And again, this isn't what we're voting on today, so,
Yeah. But to answer your question, yeah, we
okay.
talked about it, but it can't replace what we're doing tonight.
All right, anybody else have any questions before we?
I have a question, Julia.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I apologize for not knowing this answer. Maybe I didn't get a chance to read everything, but the armed guards that are going to be in the school, what are they going to be armed with? Handgun, and what caliber might that be?
Typically 9mm pistols.
I can barely hear him, Julie.
9mm pistol?
But I don't know 100%, but it'll be a caliber that's suitable for.
Yeah, 9mm
Well,
or relative equivalent.
Yeah, my one of the things I think that, as we move forward with these types of things, you got to look at, that should be something that's standard, and what kind of ammunition is going to be in there. Is it going to be hollow point? What kind of ammunition? And we should clarify that. And the other thing too is has there been any consideration about considering maybe a shotgun, which would give more close stopping power, which in these cases, most of these things, they're going to be in close range without any of the collateral damage of a stray bullet out of a 9mm. I mean, they're ricocheting down those walls. I mean, has there any thought of been discussions around any of that stuff yet?
So that would be discussion for, so right now, we're discussing, are we going to move forward with drafting and firming up a contract? So.
Oh, okay. I got you. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yep, I'm
those are, maybe a little cart before the horse.
Yep, I thought we
But
were
not
voting
by,
on
yeah, I know you're not,
coming in and
I know you're not here.
services, that's all.
Yeah. So, I said this during private meetings too, so it's not going to come as any surprise to anybody. I'm very apprehensive about bringing weapons, even with trained personnel into the buildings. I'm very nervous about it, and I'm not blind to the fact that somewhere around 80% of the public responded, and of those 80 some odd percent of that percentage said that they would like to see some sort of armed personnel on site in the schools. I don't like the idea of things that where mistakes are permanent, and no one's saying anybody wants to make a mistake, but I will. Being the president of the board, I will feel a profound amount of responsibility if something goes wrong at school, if there are guns introduced that have exacerbated that issue.
You'll feel worse when somebody's kid gets shot.
by a police officer, maybe?
We're losing 20 students.
You know, I mean, I understand that this is
If
not,
that had ever happened, it would have been blasted across the news.
as I,
Possible? Yes. Probable? Not.
and I also am concerned, I'm concerned about the idea of having police officers, even if they're trained, to be around, to be in an education setting. I am nervous because there is a certain, I feel like I have to say publicly that there are concerns I have about members of our student body being looked upon by anyone not as students but as suspects. It's concerning to me. I heard during the presentation that the current studies show that there is a 75% decline of students being introduced into the criminal justice system when there is a school resource officer, which is not the same as a student police officer, but a school police officer, but it is a similar situation.
You will find that your concerns, as time goes on, as we introduce these police officers into the schools, you'll find your comfort level will increase, because part of that program, we consider all the studies and we consider all those things that you just talked about. And we address those when we introduce this program in there. I know exactly what you're speaking to, and we go above and beyond to make sure that that does not happen. And there's a way that we do that. There's a way that we connect with each segment of the population in school.
So
I think
don't discount my ability to continue to feel unease.
Yeah,
because I have a vast capacity for being nervous about things that we do that are new.
You know, and it's to be expected, and you're not the only person, and I totally respect anybody that feels that way. But these programs have been in place for, they've had police officers in schools since 1950. The SRO program, when they enhanced it, they did that to help reduce juvenile crime since 1990. And as the program evolved, there's a lot of other studies out there that will show you that your concerns that you have been addressed.
And you did say, I'm sorry, Mr. Blacksuit.
That was Springfield.
Yeah.
I called him Springer. I was
Yeah.
butchering names today. I butchered my boss's name. I'm surprised I'm not getting fired.
Yeah, Mr. Springfield said that if we were to vote to bring them into our school, that the issues that I'm talking about, that they would be working with us in some sort of synthesis with the administration to create what our major areas of concern are.
This is a team effort.
Right.
And having the background that I have, knowing the background that they have, knowing the school resource officer or school police officer system as well as I do, I'm very confident to tell you that your concerns over time will diminish. You'll see how we interact with the students. You'll see how the students respond to that. They're law enforcement officers, but the law enforcement component is the very last thing that we use in this program. There's the educational component where we're guest lecturers. There's the mentoring component where we interact with the students and we foster those relationships with them all across the board. Those two components right there, the goal is to try to reduce the law enforcement part of that. So all the students that we charged last year, the goal going into this is to try to reduce that number and to try to educate these students about police officers, see the human side of police officers, and that actually carries out into the community. So real quickly, once they build that trust with these police officers and police officers get in front of them and they start teaching them different things, it may be something as simple as, this is why we conduct car stops this way. This is what the police expect you to do. This is how you can avoid getting hurt. And once you do that, and these students understand that, that's going to resonate with them in the event they do get pulled over or they do have an interaction with the police out in the community other than just in the school. That is really the goal of the School Resource Officer Program, and it has been very successful. So hopefully your concerns as time goes on and as we measure these, our stats later on down the road and our responses from our students, we're hoping that this really works the way it's supposed to work.
She wants to speak.
You're good.
Oh.
You're good.
I think it would be nice for students to, experience
Julia?
Hold on one sec.
a police officer as closely as it would be with these connections and in classroom experiences and teaching and stuff. Because I do know that a lot of people can be intimidated by what they see on social media and the news and stuff, but I guess experiencing that authority firsthand might help them alleviate their stress in person, in the real world when they're interacting with law enforcement.
I will say that Ms. Sheffo has a little experience because her father is the second tallest and most imposing looking retired police officer that I've ever met. So, I'm sorry, Mr. Strobel. Mr. Strobel?
Yeah, I said it's really hard to hear, so if I ask
Yeah.
the same question and it just got answered,
No, it's
I
okay.
apologize.
Ms.
Yeah,
Ms.
I know-
Sheffo, did you get to hear what she had to say?
I did. It was the other gentleman. It's going to be hard. I mean, I'd like to vote last because it's going to be hard for me to vote. There's so many unanswered questions for me, like retired policemen. I have two brothers that are retired policemen. What is the age limit? We're talking about a 50-year-old retired policeman. We're talking about a 60-year-old retired policeman. What are the qualifications? And he said he can get somebody in 6 to 8 weeks. It's local. I'm challenged by those comments. I'm all about. I think we can protect our money with guns, and so we should protect our kids. I get that. I have concerns over and I know we can do a lot of things with the contract, but it's hard for me to say yes when I don't know that we're not going to have a 9mm or a 40 millimeter in there. It's a 40 caliber. It's just a challenge for me to vote. So I prefer to vote last, so that way you have all the votes.
And one thing
I'm just not comfortable.
One thing I will say is that this vote is to go forward with what needs to be what we need to go forward with this with a contract with Cardinal. However, and we know what the monetary value is, at least the ballpark where we're starting now. But when there is an actual contract, we will also have to vote on that. And we will also have to vote on MOUs when they come along. So, but we do before we can even, if we are going to go forward with this, before we can even sit down at a table with the local law enforcement or with the Pennsylvania State Police, with Cardinal and our representatives, we need to have a vote to give them the authority to do so.
I'm good. I did not know that. That's good. Thank you.
I just want to clarify something.
Yes.
If you're voting to hire Cardinal, you are voting for armed personnel.
Correct. Oh, yeah, that I know. But he's talking about some of the details that I think have not been hired out with the local police departments.
I gotta decide. I don't want to be I don't know those things, and those things aren't my decision.
And
Right.
Let me tell you, as somebody that was in high school when Columbine happened, you know, I know what some of these kids feel like when they see this on the news. Because that was really an original, like, not an original, but like that was like the first of the first. And that was terrifying, and being in middle school during that time, you know, any little thing that happened, there was a food fight, and people just scattered. They ran out of the buildings. And so, as somebody that remembers that time in my life, I would have felt a lot more comfortable knowing that there was somebody there that could possibly save us if need be. That's just my perspective as somebody coming from a child.
I will tell you this, the average response time when you dial 911 with an intruder for the police to respond is 6 minutes. It's over before they get here.
Is that on? Is
It
your
isn't on, but I'm hoping I'm loud enough.
No, we got somebody on the
Can't hear.
phone who's having trouble hearing you. So
Just push the button.
Press
push the button on the top.
pad. Yep.
No,
Blue light comes on.
I shouldn't be involved in the decision what type of weapons they use.
That's-
But I don't have knowledge on that. I have to trust the
But just
company
this,
to
but
make
right this moment,
decisions.
Yeah.
we're not.
But that's
voting-
not even what
We're
we're
not even
discussing.
approving this contract. This is just moving it to the next
No,
step.
you're-
So all this is,
what we're voting on, what this motion votes on is, it's a motion to enter into an agreement with Cardinal Point Security. Now, as with all of our contracts, they are final review by solicitor before they are implemented. But this vote will vote to enter an agreement with Cardinal Point Security for armed personnel with guns in our buildings.
I just want to clarify that.
No, I understand. But I also wanted Mr. Sherrill and everybody else to understand that as I wanted to hear again, it's a collaborative effort. There are some different milestones where we will have input into what happens in our schools. We're not ceding all responsibility and authority for what's happening with the armed personnel in the buildings. I'm not that. It's not that level of contracted vendor situation that some people might think it would be if it
We don't
were.
expect everybody here to know all about firearms.
Just add, why is this? Why is
Hold
this
on one second. Let me
I'm
let
sorry.
our Mr.
Yeah, I can't hear him talking. I'm sorry.
Mr. Reichert.
We absolutely do not expect everyone here to know about policing. Firearms, training, tactics, that is our line of work. That is not an educator's line of work.
Right.
So when you do, or if you do approve this, we will certainly sit down with anybody who wants to sit down and explain all of that.
Yep.
And make you feel more at ease.
But not all those decisions are already made as to what some of these things that he's talking
I
about.
hear what he's saying.
Yeah.
He does have some valid points, but those are things that we can discuss beyond
Right.
here, and I can assure you they'll be addressed.
And we might be looking to have a security update at some point in a couple months to see where we are.
And all, no, this isn't on, not only for the board, but our approach too is going to be with parents that
Sure.
want to know, and you know, we want to make sure that because we're doing something different here, that the community understands everything as well. So we certainly know from experience that when you inject this into a school system or a hospital, whatever, that there's going to be questions of concern. But yeah, they'll be addressed, and I'm sure your comfort level again will be, you'll be fine with it. That's just from my experience.
I mean, I can tell you this, you know, I've been in schools for, as an educator, as a teacher and administrator for over 32 years. Started back in 1990. And when I first came to work with this board in the school district, and brought on board the district security officer at that point in time where we had nothing like that, I felt it was a way for us to start a program that starts benefiting our kids and our community. With what has happened over the past 3.5 years in our time together in this district, and over the 32 years I've been in education, I never thought we'd be having these conversations about what we have to do to protect our most valuable asset in our community, but it's the reality. And if it means having a trained professional in our buildings that understands police work, how to utilize a firearm in the appropriate way to impact not having any of our children, not having any of our staff members, not having any of our community members that may be in the building at that time impacted by a tragedy, then it's time. I feel it's time.
In your 30 years as an educator, since you've come on scene, there's been 2,032 school shootings.
Correct.
2,032 school shootings, 27 of them just this past year, and
27 too many?
27 too many, and I'm just going to point you to Governor Mifflin just not too long ago, where the fight that started at the school ended up across the street in the park. I can assure you, I can assure you that that gun was taken to school and most likely with the student, could have been in their car or whatever, but that very well could have happened in the school. They decided to take it across the street.
Yeah.
A couple of kids got shot, one got killed. So, you know, it is time, and you know, I don't know what else I can say to.
No, I think.
One last thing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Yep. I just want to say, for the record, I'm for this process, 100%. I think it's needed, it's necessary. What I guess I don't understand is why this contract. I've never entered into a contract to enter into the negotiations about the contract. I don't understand what's different about this process that makes us have to say we're going to move forward with this company without going through all the details first. I mean, isn't that being a proposal? If they propose these things, we don't like that, we like this, we do this. How do they, I don't understand having to move forward with a contract to be able to get into the details to move forward with the contract. It's just odd to me. I'm not saying it's wrong, it's completely unorthodox for me. I've never ever experienced that before. And so that's 90% of where my questions are, is like, I don't feel comfortable without having the details, but if, what happens if we say yes today and we go down the path and 2 or 3 people aren't happy with the result? They're going to carry, they're going to carry 45 caliber. They're not going to, but let's say they are, 12-inch barrels, blah, 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 blah. And we're not comfortable. Can we say no at that point, or did we already say yes to a contract and we have to work through it? That's what this seems odd. I'm for it. I'm all for it. I think we need to have some protection for our kids, and I think it needs to be guns. However, I don't understand it. That's all. So, for what it's worth.
You were going to answer the question, at least as far as.
So he's concerned as the caliber of handguns.
That's
right?
yeah.
So
that's one concern. I'm
He's
sorry.
asking if there is something that we find concerning, can we ask the company to walk it back?
Did he say that with the personnel too?
Yeah, that's what he
He
said.
referred to the personnel too.
everything's always negotiable.
Right.
But my question is, and one thing we want to make clear is you are hiring these people to be armed security person
Right.
in the buildings. All the other details with what type of weapons and how we do it, what type of tactics, we can certainly sit down and discuss them. I understand where he's coming from. I mean, it would take me a little bit.
It's really important because of the nature of where we're at. We're not in a bank behind 4 inches of glass. We're in a school with a lot of children. I also don't know. I don't know what's the upper age limit for this. From a retired police officer standpoint, is it going to have to be counties? Let me finish. Is it county, state? Is it is it something less than that? There's so many questions I have in regards to the caliber of the person that's going to be in there. I got more than just caliber of the gun questions. And my guest question is why do we have to enter into a contract to get to the point where we're going to discuss the finer points of the contract? If Julia, you're telling me we have to do this, there's no other way to do it, that, we're going to sign this and then we're going to go into it.
I'm not saying
seems
that.
unorthodox to me, that's all.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. You were going to.
So I'm confused.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we were voting to move forward with a proposal from the company, not that we were going to lock ourselves into a contract that I agree with Kevin, that we have sparse details. Is that not?
Is there a contract already drafted?
They do have a contract drafted, yes.
And we haven't seen it? The board hasn't seen it?
No.
I haven't seen it.
No.
I mean, let's say they said 6 to 8 weeks they can find somebody and they don't. Is there a clause in there that's going to, ding them for money versus us spending the money? There's so many pieces to this that I don't understand, and I'm okay with moving forward with the vote. It's just I'm uncomfortable because the process seems wrong. Not what we're going to ultimately do. I'm all for this. The process seems odd to me. That's all. And maybe it's just me.
The board asked us back in June to come up with a plan on some different proposals and plans for armed security in our buildings. And at that point, I indicated that just arming one person and Mr. Reichert was not going to be appropriate for what we're trying to do because he can't cover all 4 buildings in our district. And it would be leaving 1 building or 3 buildings out to dry in the event that a tragedy would happen. So if we were to move forward, my recommendation was to move forward with armed personnel in each one of our buildings. So in our research, looking at school resource officers, which Mr. Reichert mentioned earlier, the school police officers and armed security guards came up with what we felt would be the best plan moving forward for our district, with arming people, trained personnel in our buildings. Now, regardless of age of folks, you can't put an age stipulation. We're only going to hire you if you're over 50 and less than 60. You run into labor laws.
I agree.
So the contract that Cardinal Point put forth is a standard agreement that they use for multiple school districts now that they provide this service to in the form of armed police officers and armed security guards. That's what the agreement is. The details of what caliber gun, rifle, whatever that they're going to use, they're the trained professionals. I'm not going to make that decision. I'm not going to sit there in a meeting and say, well, you have to have a 9mm, not a 40 caliber or 44 caliber, or you have to have a shotgun, not an AK or AR-57 or AR-15 or whatever. I'm an educator, not a police officer, not trained to do that. So I'm not going to make those decisions. That's these people that we're hiring as a firm that does this and provides the service for school districts.
And I don't disagree with you, Brett. The difference for me is I understand a lot of it because I grew up around it. My family's in the police work. I've got multiples of police officers, and there's just certain things that are common sense too, where you wouldn't want certain guns in certain areas. I don't know of any of that. You've already vetted the contract, so like I said, this is just me not understanding the process. I understand you can't talk about age, but are we talking about retired police officers? Or are we talking about somebody who has 6 weeks of training?
Kevin, I get what you're saying. Mr. Jurek did have a comment after what he heard Brett say. Dr. Cooper, so let me just go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Kevin, because I know it's hard on the phone. I've been on a couple of phone gigs. Did you hear the presentation from the gentleman where they said about the 4 to 6 week training period? No. Like, I just want to make sure that you understand that these aren't,
They're carefully selected to work in
These
are not
this isn't your Walmart security guard. These are carefully trained, vetted individuals that are brought into these positions. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that, because it sounds to me like
I couldn't understand 90% of what he was saying. I can only hear part of what you're saying.
Okay, so I'm going
It's
to
really
offer
hard.
everybody the opportunity, if they would like. I'm going to make a motion to table this until next voting meeting and see if somebody wants to give me a second.
Let's vote on it. Why don't we just vote on it?
If nobody wants to give me a second, we'll vote on it.
No, another 2
I think-
weeks, 6 weeks would take us out to October 3rd.
I'm just, so if there's no second,
In between next
So this is going around and around, so,
if there's no second,
no, there's no second. Is there a second?
For what?
to table
Table
this
this.
for 2
We're
weeks.
gonna vote tonight.
Okay.
No, I disagree.
Because we are voting on something where we haven't seen the contract yet.
Well,
Okay.
it might, but Rob said earlier, like, my.
It is up to
And Brian
solicitor
Supers is
approval.
gonna review it, and we're gonna have our, so this
Okay.
isn't, I mean,
So
we
if nobody,
have a buffer here.
so if I didn't get a second to table, so then do we have any final additional comments before we have a vote?
Oh,
This doesn't,
no, go ahead, you can talk.
I just wanted to know, like, so there will be sessions on where they would discuss, like, how they would introduce
Absolutely.
in regards to the
Mhm.
students and stuff? Okay.
Yep. For all stakeholders, being teachers, parents, students, and probably the local law enforcement that aren't involved. You know.
Part of that whole presentation was the education and all that
Right,
they
exactly.
bring to the school. I mean,
Yeah.
they're gonna educate the kids, and they're gonna teach the teachers.
Yeah.
right.
There's a lot-
Mr.
there's a
Riker was
lot-
the one that brought up talking to the
Right, and
to
he said the last thing was the actual gun. Like, that's at the
Okay,
bottom of
so anybody have anything else that questions they want answered or comments they want to make before we have a vote?
I'm good.
Okay, can I get a roll call?
Okay, Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Jarrett,
Yes.
Mrs. Leone,
Yes.
Mr. Scott, yes. Mr. Strobel,
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson,
Yes.
and Mrs. Olson.
Reluctantly, yes.
don't
So, that's fine. Yeah, we don't, there's no
There's no
qualifier.
reluctantly.
I understand. All right, so we're going to be moving forward with that. All right, last couple things. 3A1 through 4 inclusive. Do I get a motion for those? Sorry.
Motion.
Can I get a second? Second. You'll see that it's a very long list. It's one of the main reasons we're having a special voting tonight, because we need to get some of these positions filled as soon as possible before school starts. So, any comments, concerns?
I can tell you that administrative team has been working very diligently since the spring
Oh, there was no shade in my comment.
for these for these hires, and we are down to the need for one position at the middle school, which we'll be discussing in our executive session. But we're looking at over 20 new staff members this year
Yeah.
across the district.
20.
Over 20. Yes.
You know,
And not
Dr.
counting
Cooper,
guesses.
Dr. Cooper and I have been speaking this summer periodically on where we are, and I've been, I was a little nervous on June 3rd on where we would be here, but we're in a lot better shape than I thought we would be, a lot better shape than some of the other districts in the county, and especially statewide. So, so any comments, questions, concerns on anybody or anything before we vote on these retirements, leaves, and additions to our staff? Can I get a vote?
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Jarrett,
Yes.
Mrs. Leone,
Yes.
Mr. Scott, yes. Mr. Strobel,
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson,
Yes.
and Mrs.
Yes.
Okay.
And let me just say, one of the two people that's still stuck it out all this time, Ms. Miller, is going to be our new academic leader for STEM for 6 to 12, replacing Mrs. Lofsky, who retired this past year. Thank you for taking that on. That's wonderful. And
You're required to be at all these meetings, too. This is the latest we've got.
I know, it's been a long time. So any public comments before we adjourn for the evening for our next meeting?
She's not allowed.
Okay.
We're going to adjourn.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Ms. Bell, Mr. Jurek, I hear a first and a second. I'll see you all back here in 2 weeks. Have a good week.
Exec session.